Buenas tardes a todos. Este evento ofrece interpretación simultánea al español. Por favor, desde su computadora haga clic en el icono de globo terráqueo que dice Interpretación y seleccione Español. Si solo desea escuchar al intérprete, silencie el audio original. Desde un teléfono inteligente o tableta, toque ligeramente la pantalla para ver el menú de 3 puntos que dice Más y luego selecciona Interpretación de idiomas. Después Español y silencie el audio original. Termine la selección con Listo o Done para comenzar a escuchar al intérprete. Si se une llamando por teléfono o a través de una computadora, no podrá escuchar la interpretación. Necesita la aplicación de Zoom instalada. Hi everyone, this event offers interpretation into Spanish. Please select your language as Spanish by clicking on the globe icon that says Interpretation. This will allow you to hear the presentation as you normally would and to hear the interpreter when someone participates in Spanish. If you are on the smart device, touch your screen lightly and select the 3 dots to view the language options. If you have any questions or issues, please post them on the chat so the facilitator can assist you. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for coming this evening. Good evening. I call the meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. Welcome to our fourth School Site Council meeting for the 2023-2024 school year. Today, we welcome Special Education Director Grace Ridgway as our administrative representative for us for this meeting. And we are excited that you are here to collaborate with our SSC. We know you have prior SSC experience and always have a wealth of knowledge in our learning community. So thank you for being here. I think it is important, since Grace is here in her capacity, that we do go around and introduce ourselves and let Grace know what your capacity is on the SSC. So, and if you're a parent or a teacher, or what your role is at our school. So starting with Julia. Yeah.
My officer at the SSC is like.
And you're a parent, and can you tell us the age of your student, your child?
Hi, Grace. I'm Matt. I have a second and third grader who are both 8 and right now, at least until April 21st. And I'm the secretary.
And I'm Megan Krim, and I'm the chair, and I'm a first grade teacher for the English class.
Hi, I'm Sarah Peterson. I'm the vice chair of the SSC. This is my second year on the SSC, but the first year of a 2-year term. And I have a first grader and I have a fourth grader here at AEA.
Good evening, I'm Brian Inglis. I'm the occupational therapist here at AEA at the elementary and middle school campuses. And as part of the SSC, I am a staff member.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Horsley. I'm a parent of a third grader and a first grader, and this is my first year on the SSC.
Hi, I'm Matt Rizzolo, middle school PE teacher, a staff member here on SSC.
Hi, I'm Veronica, community coordinator for the elementary and middle school, and this is my first year on SSC.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. This is kind of our first meeting that we will be able to have some discussion and conversation. Our first couple of meetings have been kind of some of the things that we need to do, like an annual Title I meeting. I'm revising some of our documents, our guiding documents. So today we look forward to actually discussing with everybody who is in attendance today, kind of where we are, kind of our work, and where we're heading. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. We are going to look to our agenda, and under old business, and it's the only item under this, is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on November 9th, 2023. This is a consent item. There'll be a motion to approve and a second to the motion, followed by a yay or nay vote of the current SSC members. Members of the SSC have had an opportunity to review the minutes. We send those out about a week early for us to review in our own time. And we are asking at this point if there are any comments or corrections to the November 9th SSC minute. Wonderful. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 9th SSC meeting?
I will make a motion.
So Sarah Peterson moves to approve the motion. Is there a second?
Well, second.
Okay, and Julia seconds the motion. It has been moved by Sarah and seconded by Julia to approve the November 9th SSC minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Wonderful. So the November 9th minutes have been approved. Next on our agenda is we have just a moment in our meeting for a speaker series. The speaker series is, we advertised initially for it to be literacy at AEA with Sean Powell, who is our literacy specialist in the elementary school. But with the change of our meeting, and thank you everybody for being flexible and changing it to this week, she is unable to be here tonight. So we just are going to spend about 10 minutes and look to our own council for expertise. At our October annual meeting, we asked members of the public that came to that meeting to share a topic we want to know more about during our SSC meetings. One idea was around how to help students maintain focus and develop routines. Brian Inglis is a wonderful resource for our students, teachers, families, parents, and our school to address this kind of area around self-regulation and how it aligns with OT supports at AEA. I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and we're just going to spend about 10 minutes kind of talking about how we help support kids with self-regulation here at school.
Oh, absolutely. The first thing I'd like to say is that as the SSC team, we understand that all of our families' spaces, their personal spaces, their environments, they all look different. So when we're applying these types of strategies to help our kids develop our students develop these routines, we need to keep that in mind when we are providing these types of recommendations. Some things around routines that I think of as an occupational therapist is just that, structured routines. Things, even just writing out a list is really helpful, in having check boxes for your kids to actually put their mark on something and have ownership of it. And if they have ownership, then they'll look forward to it the next time. Of course, attaching reward systems are wonderful to those things, meaning like, you know, they can get an ice cream or something like that when they complete things. But reward systems aren't always so successful too. Some other things to consider when we're thinking about routines. We have AM routines and PM routines, right? So morning and afternoon, so bedtime routines. Those are probably the toughest two routines right there when I specifically work with my students that are a little more challenged with a disability. So, but our general population that are more neurotypical students, even they will benefit from, you know, having good structures and having these types of routines. And things to do with, especially at nighttime, is to create a wind down period for them. They shouldn't be revving and going, you know, all the way up till bedtime. So really part of that structure is having that wind down. And that includes like I hate to say it, but getting off the electronics. That blue light, all the blue light that emanates from laptops, from, games, Game Boys, all those things, anything with a screen, actually just, our brain goes into this hyper responsive piece and it takes a while to shut it down. So at least up to an hour before bedtime, before starting that routine even, coming off of those types of devices is very helpful in that. And even in the mornings, we don't want to start them off with that. Like, when you're getting them ready for school, when you think about morning routines, timers are great. And if they really like music, I've seen music work really well where you play a certain song and like, okay, play your song and that's your dressing song. And then by the time that song's over, they should be dressed. And then you could use that type of, and that's a timer as well. It's not only are they having fun with some of their favorite music, but they're also attached to a timer. And you can also keep changing it up too, and actually make it a nice little thing that should be between you and your student, your child is searching those new songs too, and making them a part of it and stuff. And you can have some good bonding time as well by looking for those things. One of the other pieces too would be, I know we all like, this is more for our youngers, of course, but a lot of our kids really do crave like nice depression, like, and just, sitting with your child before bedtime, telling stories, right? Reading books, these are all great options. And then also just that, weighted blankets, they like those types of things too, but just that nice pressure from a parent, even just, on their back or something like that. Or I like to use those inflatable balls. You can use a ball to kind of roll on them. And that's actually a really soothing thing and kind of part of that wind down period. And those are for our kiddos that have a little action. Things that, rest and digest, right? We both may have heard that before, but like if we're eating too much, at the end of our night, our body is going to be working to digest it, working to get through it. And that creates waking us up a little too. So.
Time and all the things that we do want to talk about. I am going to thank you, Brian, for kind of stepping in and just kind of speaking from the hip a little bit about some of the things you do to support our students. I know it's helpful to always be refreshed as a teacher of what to do.
Absolutely, thank you.
So under new business is our next part of the agenda, and this is an important agenda item where we are going to be talking about first SSC membership and as it relates to the principal position, just to make sure that we are compliant with what our bylaws are and also what California Department of Education, the SSC takes being compliant very seriously. And we also are understanding of the flexibility, but we want to make sure that we are following kind of what is outlined for an SSC as kind of what we need to be moving towards. Matt and Sarah, you're particularly well-versed in our bylaws and the California Department of Education and what they have to say about the principal position on the SSC. We have Grace here in that position today.
So Grace, thank you for coming this evening. I understand that you're going to be an interim. I'm not sure the way it was spelled
For this meeting.
particularly, sorry.
Yeah.
And so our bylaws, for those, we just went through a revision. Our bylaws basically designate that the principal in non-elected position, ad hoc, I think it is. And we specifically in our bylaws say principal, but the CDE says principal or their designee. So for the SSC members, this is more for information. Whoever, either Principal Bowders or Interim Principal Diaz I designate, can then be our administrator. And then we had talked about the idea that our bylaws probably should be more in line with the CDE. So at the beginning of next year, when the bylaws are reviewed and revisions are proposed, that will be on the list of things to talk about to revise potentially at that time. Sarah?
I have not reviewed them in advance for this meeting, so I apologize. I have nothing to add.
Okay. So moving forward, we have Grace, Director Ridgway, here with us today. And I know we're going to remain flexible, but we also want to make sure that when that we just designate somebody to administrative person to be here at all of the meetings. That's an important role for SSC. Okay, any questions or comments? So next on our agenda is we are going to have 4 reports from our subcommittees. We kind of have a flow chart here, and it gives a little bit of understanding of how we created our subcommittees. Our subcommittees are little working groups to kind of do thinking in smaller, more intimate groups, but we bring that information to the SSC. SSCs are where decisions are made and voted on. Our subcommittees are built around the idea that we have deliverables. We have things that we want to bring to the administration based on the Title I funding, and also to our Board of Education, our Board of Trustees, excuse me, and also around kind of what else we would be delivering in this year. So this flow chart kind of explains a little bit that we have a pool of money. This is the Title I funds that we have, and that information kind of feeds into the other subcommittee, which is a needs assessment and evaluation and monitoring, and we'll hear from that subcommittee today. We have a parallel parent and family engagement subcommittee that we will also hear from today. And then the information that these subcommittees that we'll be working on leads to the LCAP committee, which is our Local Control Accountability Plan. And it's our recommendation to AEA and to our administration about Title I funds and how we make our suggestion, how we come to our suggestion. So that's kind of how we got our subgroups and designed them. Any questions about kind of that flow from anybody in the public as well? So the first subcommittee is going to be from the budget subcommittee. Today, we're not voting on anything. We want to kind of follow some routines. We'll have the subcommittee kind of speak to the work that they've already done so far. And we want to do kind of a go around. We give everybody an opportunity to speak to that. You'll get about 1 or 2 minutes to speak to that. We'll ask for any further questions or comments. Sarah Peterson has graciously agreed to kind of create a shared a recap, a check for understanding after each subcommittee meeting, a report. And then if there's a moment where we need to kind of have some silence to reflect on what has been reported, I will call for that as well. So just a little bit of kind of some formal ways that we do this session.
And I just want to point out that in everyone's handout, the stapled handout, there's hard copies of some of the slides that we'll be projecting, just so you know ahead of time.
And then, just to clarify public comment, we do have a public comment time at the end of our meeting where public can address the SSC on non-agenda items. But during the subcommittee report, we welcome questions from our public as well. So just to kind of clarify that, because we want to hear from voices and see that we're developing a shared understanding of the work. So the first subcommittee is the budget subcommittee. Sarah and Matt, I'm going to have you kind of speak to what has been done so far and where you are headed.
All right. So we did meet, Brian is also a member of the subcommittee. We were able to meet back in December. And our initial meeting was coming up with what is the information we need, because you have to ask the right questions to get the right answers. So we spent a lot of that time formulating what information would help us analyze. And then there was the delay of getting some of that information in. So we do have some preliminary information to share with you guys tonight, but we haven't had the chance to digest, break it down, and fully offer our analysis of it. Hopefully the next budget subcommittee we have will be able to do a little more detail. But clicking on, the notes for discussion, I believe it's in that one.
Yeah.
And then down to the bottom, there are some hyperlinked documents. Go ahead, let's start with the 23-24 and we'll work backwards. I know everyone wants to look at lots of spreadsheets. So that one, that's the 22.
I lost it.
And so, for those of us with it in front of us, it is,
So 23-24 Title I budget.
yeah, it's the first printout after the initial questions from budget, if you're looking at the hard copy in front of you. At the last SSC meeting, we did share the overall budget number of $218,169. And this is providing us the breakdown of what is budgeted in the 23-24 budget for the Title I funds and what categories. They are primarily classified salaries and benefits that are associated with them. We just have very preliminary information that this covers up to some portion of 4 employees. We're hoping we may be able to parse through a little bit more to find out where exactly this is addressing the Title I need. So these are obviously follow-up questions that I think we'll have after our next budget committee and we're able to digest. Now to have you jump to the next two. We were able to get the budgeted categories and the actual expenses and income for the 22-23 fiscal year. And in the budgeted category, we received about $15,000 less than originally budgeted for in 2023. And it was very similarly structured to the budget for 23-24, where it's going to salary However, we did notice in the actuals, there was a different expenditure that we weren't anticipating. So we will have, follow-up questions to figure out how exactly that was used. Hopefully get additional information to understand. As I said, this is preliminary information that we have right now. We haven't had our chance to digest it. However, our next meeting is January 23rd, so we should be able to figure out what additional information and follow-up we have in order to get, the full understanding from the information presented to us.
Okay.
Just a comment for the whoever's on Zoom or for the newers that haven't participants that haven't been in a meeting before. The idea behind the budget subcommittee is that the SEV $1 to the hardest time meeting the academic standards. And so the more granular we can get in terms of how the dollars are spent, we can sort of look at it before and then after and the intervention in between to see how effective the dollars are. And so that's sort of the basics of why we're trying to break down the details.
So we're just going to do a quick go around, and you do have the right to pass, but we just want to make sure all voices who would like to speak can ask questions to the budget committee. I am going to start with, I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, Matt Fasolo. Do you have any questions or comments regarding what was presented? And we're just going to go around clockwise, and you do have a right to pass.
No, I don't have any questions for the budget.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. And Maria?
Just I guess a question, any plans to look at budgets from other maybe similar schools who are also utilizing Title I funds? Perhaps those have schools that maybe have been identified as effectively using their Title I funds, and maybe those who haven't, just as a way to compare.
Elements are and the rationale behind them.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'm going to pass. Grace? Okay. And
I'll pass.
okay, and Matt?
So I just want to reiterate that our goal is to get as much detail as possible so that we can have details about what specifically intervention-wise the dollars are spent for. Because for me, being a non-finance person and a non-educator, the information that we have is very vague, and I don't have a good handle on what it all means. So hopefully we can get some details and solve that for me.
Okay. Thank you. And Sarah, do you want to kind of do a little check for understanding? I think we kind of just have a few questions.
Veronica?
Subcommittee. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Veronica.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so feel free to jump in when I inadvertently make a omission. So in December, the subcommittee met, Brian, Sarah W.R., and Matt. And they spent that meeting brainstorming and drafting their questions, which they shared with us, understanding that asking the question in the right way can be the essential first step in obtaining the information needed. There was communication with AEA administration, and we received the 22-23 Title I budget, and then how the funds actually were spent, as well as the budget as drafted for 23-24. And of course, we're in the school year now, so we don't have those actuals just yet. We will look forward to hearing more about your inquiries and conversations as your next meeting is on January 23rd.
Very nice. I knew she'd be good at that. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Budget Subcommittee, and for your work. And we look forward to hearing at the next SSC your progress. So the next subcommittee is the Needs Assessment, Evaluation, and Monitoring Subcommittee. And I am a co-chair, and I co-chair with Maria. Maria is going to kind of give the highlights for our meeting so far and where we are heading.
Okay, hello, everybody. Okay, so just a little bit of context, the needs assessment as a mandated kind of responsibility of the school site council, and hence the now subcommittee is tasked with overseeing that. So our priorities as a subcommittee are to create structures and procedures for the needs assessment now and for future SSCs, and to gather information, data, and advise on LCAP goal number 3 and its connection to the use of Title I funds. And for information, the LCAP goal number 3 is to create structures that close the achievement gap and support the needs of targeted groups, such as English language learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, and students with disabilities. And also to support DLAC's needs assessment process. And I know that's coming up, so we'll be in touch, and I hope we can help support maybe during and after as well. So some of our achievements thus far this year we've been able to review as a subcommittee the MAP data that was available to us thus far this year. So many thanks to Dr. Diaz, and engaged in a data dialogue, utilizing a protocol that asks participants to examine the patterns and trends of performance indicators and to generate root cause discussions. So these structured conversations are aiding us in making recommendations, advising on that LCAP goal number 3. We've also reviewed the Smarter Balanced CASP data from last spring, and that data is specific to English language arts and math for grades 3 and above. And per that review of the data and subsequent reflections within our group and within among interested parties here, we've narrowed our priority population area for this year to support the students in grades 6 and 5, to focus on their needs and to advise on what may be best to support them. And for those students then who are also considered socioeconomically disadvantaged. And again, this is based on the review thus far of quantitative academic data and discussions with admin, teacher, families, all of us who are working together as part of the school site council. Obviously, that is not representative of all the families that represent those students and the students themselves, and also the teachers working very closely with those students. So our next kind of piece of this is to dive deeper with more data collection related to qualitative data, and to connect with students, teachers, families who intimately, or either those students or intimately know those students, so that we can best advise on the supports that those students specifically need. So yep, that's us moving forward. We're looking forward to it.
And if I can add as the co-chair, our subcommittee meeting, it was wonderful because we did have both vice principals at our meeting. It's so important that this is done in conjunction with our administration. When we talk about, she mentioned 4th and 5th. I mean, you can imagine all the data that we have at AEA. And that was just kind of a jumping in point, and then going from there. But we are definitely with the data dialogue. We are training ourselves to notice and observe what the data is saying, and make sure Sarah was very skilled and trained in providing data dialogues. So we're not, it's very typical to look at data and kind of jump to conclusions, and that's not what we're trying to do at all. We're just trying to notice patterns, and that would guide our thinking. So we're going to just do another go around, and I'm going to start with Brian. If you have any comments about that subcommittee, we don't have our next meeting set. We are going to set it soon, and then you have a right to pass.
I'm going to pass on that one.
Okay.
I'm going to pass.
Grace? Okay.
No questions.
No questions.
I'll pass.
And Veronica?
I'll pass.
Same, no questions.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, that's good. And then Sarah's going to just kind of make sure we have a shared understanding and check for understanding on what that subcommittee just reported.
Very exciting subcommittee. I believe it's our biggest subcommittee. Makes sense, given that it is a prerequisite, so foundational to the rest of the work, as Maria, one of our co-chairs of that subcommittee, pointed out. Exciting that we have both vice principals as part of that subcommittee, and to ensure that we are indeed pulling from the actual quantitative or student performance data as it is reported to the state. And Megan, I feel as did I hear you say grades 4 and 5?
Oh, so thank you for the correction.
Yeah.
5th and 6th.
Yes.
Which is a huge transition at our school.
Right.
5th through 6th.
So there's so much data, and it's not to say for anyone in the public listening that we are overlooking grades TK through 4 or grades 7 and 8. It's in fact the accumulation of the elementary experience when we look at the 5th grade, and then it's that bridge year that is so critical to ensure a transition into middle school. So with LCAP goal number 3, as Maria pointed out, as the organizing principle of that team, there is a use of a data dialogue to lift and notice and observe patterns, and to use those patterns to then determine or think through possible root causes. Our following meeting, which is yet to be set, will provide a deeper dive into qualitative data.
Thank you, Sarah. Our next subcommittee report is our Parent and Family Engagement Subcommittee. I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt.
Great.
As a chair.
Okay, so I'll start with a few words about parent-family engagement. So as Maria mentioned about mandates, with Title I dollars comes requirements. And so one of those requirements is that there be an SSC, and there are a number of requirements for parent and family engagement. Included is the parent-family engagement policy, which came out last year, which I'll talk about in a moment as well. And so that's where the SSC and our subcommittee for parent-family engagement comes. We've had 2 meetings so far, and we've had, I think, 5 people each time. So Sarah and Julia and Matt and Brian, and I think if anybody else came, sorry. So anyway, we had 2 very productive meetings, and we left with 3 sort of ongoing projects. The first thing we've done thus far is, and this is included in your packets, is we've rethought the definition, not only of our SSC, but of Title I for the purposes of our communication with our community and ourselves. And so we've, Julia, you want to speak to that?
Sure. We, I don't know if this is, okay, there it is. We wanted to sort of cut down the, industry speak in the definition because kind of heard that it was hard for parents to understand, so we wanted to take it more down to street level. So we shortened the first point of the original school site council to the SSC. It's an AEA team with representatives from family, school, and community. And the SSC team works together toward ensuring that all students meet academic standards by helping shape AEA's decisions on how to direct Title I funds. And the last one, these decisions are based on student data. We also updated the definition of Title I because it's you need to know what Title I is to understand what the SSC does. So we changed the first one to just change the wording a little bit and kept the second one the same, and then just added that we guide the school how to distribute the funds.
So when we do our go around, if you guys have any thoughts about that, our plan is that based on comments today and any other comments you might have that you email between now and Friday, our plan is to sort of promulgate that message to websites and documents and what have you. So if you could ponder that more than you already have. The next, so that's sort of topic number one that we've been working on. The second topic is focus on focus. So we've been talking about creating focus groups for each of the subcommittees so that we can incorporate more families and more staff voices into our discussions, which ultimately decision-making happens here, but to involve and engage more folks. We were talking about how to reach out to. And so there are a number of people who responded to our survey last year, who provided their contact information. And then there are people that attended our meetings thus far this year who have expressed an interest in being involved with the SSC. And so you'll see, I think it's linked in the last slide. You guys, I imagine, would have already had a chance to review it. We have a letter, an email, and a text, which thank you, Maria, for translating into Spanish. Well, the English and Spanish versions, that our intent is to send messaging out to those folks this week. As the chairperson, Megan sort of gets interest from these people and then picks who she wants to be on the focus groups. And then the idea is that those focus group folks will either attend all the subcommittee meetings or some of them, or meet on their own. It'll depend on the different subcommittee. And this will be particularly important for the topic of the policy and its review and revision, which will be coming up. The idea also would be that we would message the entire community, asking about being in focus groups, but with WASC coming up, we didn't want to oversaturate families. And so before making the message community-wide to people that themselves have not yet expressed a specific interest, we're working on achieving that balance so as to not kind of burn out people and gather up all the volunteers, and so that WASC has nobody. We don't want to do that. Okay. And then the third thing that we're doing, I've alluded to a little bit, we made some changes in the year at a glance. Our February meeting is going to be structured somewhat similar to the October meeting, where we had the annual Title I meeting for half of it, and then an SSC meeting for the other half. We're going to do something comparable in February, where half the meeting is going to be a workshop, if you will, on the parent-family engagement policy. And then half will be the SSC meeting. And we're in the process of recruiting a facilitator officially for that role. So anyway, so that's what we talked about as a subcommittee. Do Matt or Julia, do you have anything else to add to that, our subcommittees?
There's a little bit of more effort put into just trying to get more people to our meetings, either on Zoom or here, individuals inviting certain people, going out to staff members, family members, parents, inviting students that are in ASB at the middle school who are interested in student government. All that kind of thing is going to hopefully lead to more of a diverse group of people for our focus groups. When are we starting the focus group?
So messaging goes out to the focus messaging goes out to recruit volunteers for focus groups. That will happen this week. And then once we have the names of volunteers, then Megan, as the chairperson, will assign from that. So interest does not equate to participation.
And in the December leadership meeting from the middle school, there was a call to ask for focus groups for SSC as well as for WASC. So we've had these conversations with administration prior to this, and we'll certainly continue to, as we move forward, talk with administration that, because we want to be mindful of our parent population and not being saturated. Having said that, we're going to start go around, and I guess I'll start this time. And just, Grace, you have an expertise. You were on an SSE, and I know student voice is super important in our process. And it is something we want to continue to figure out best practices for encouraging student voice in our discussions. So that's part of getting that focus group in, and maybe you can help with some ideas also to get student voice in our meetings. So. And we're going to go around, and you can pass or make a comment based on what was presented.
I do like and I appreciate the simplified language describing Title I. So I appreciate that effort from the group. And as far as students, I do want to say it would be great to have student voices in participating and running an SSC in my previous district. We had students sitting at the table, starting with 7th grade, and then leading that work and actually serving their peers. So that would be a great opportunity to have our students.
Sarah, thank you, Grace.
All right, I just have a couple of notes on kind of the written, one on the written simplification. For the definition of Title I, did you guys consider just calling it money instead of funds? If your goal is simplification street level, just take that as a consideration. And then you can also clean up those sentences a little bit by just calling it money instead of these funds. Just a suggestion on that note. And then looking at your proposed emails to reach out to get members of the focus group and the subcommittee. Reading this at first glance, it looks like you're muddling them, that you're trying to recruit for focus groups based on these subcommittees and not that the focus group is something separate, or you can do the subcommittee. Particularly the text message doesn't say focus group other than the very front line. So maybe just a thought on clarity that there is separate opportunities, and that if you're able to offer some explanation of what the focus group does, that doesn't come clear as to what they're being a focus group for in the proposed email and text.
And Matt and Julia?
Our next meeting is on Monday, January 22nd.
I have no more to add.
I don't have any questions.
How many focus group meetings are we gonna have? Is it just one focus group meeting, or do we not know yet?
We could probably.
So the plan is that each subcommittee has a focus group assigned or appointed, and then based upon what the co-chairs need, so that there's no set number, at least one, but it'll depend.
Maria?
No, I don't have a comment right now. I'm still thinking about it.
I just want to say great job to the committee. That was the subcommittee. I thought we did some good work there.
So thank you.
Like Director Ridgway, I really appreciate the refined language around Title I. And thank you, Sarah WR, for your critical eye and being a critical friend on how to further make that concise and comprehensible for our families and students. I am seeking clarification on the February meeting that you mentioned. It's the October, it'll be similar in structure to the October meeting. So half of it will be on parent and family engagement. I think I missed. I just need more information.
So it'll essentially the majority of the meeting will be spent with those folks that attend, I think everybody here did, the annual Title I meeting. Part of the meeting was going over, I think, the policy. And so the intent will be that hopefully whatever way the person who we elects to facilitate will break us up into groups, and we'll be able to get input from the policy of ways to, we're going to review it. All of us are going to review it before we show up. And then we'll come up with ideas for revision so that we can propose a revision if needed to the Board of Trustees. And so the ideally will block out 30 minutes of the meeting for that purpose. And so it'll be half and half, whether it's 15, 30, 15, or, you know.
I think the idea is just to be a little bit more engaging and the voices and reacting to the content in the policy.
Okay, thank you. As I was unclear, my original notes, knowing that I had to check for understanding after every subcommittee, I was thinking that the subcommittees would be part of that endeavor for February.
Well, they may.
They
but
may,
in the 30
but it's not part of the
short.
structure. Okay, I got it.
You want to kind of recap?
Okay. Our parent and family engagement subcommittee have been very busy, all the members. The first sort of subtopic is refining the definitions that go out to our families based on feedback that it reads, but nobody understands what we actually do, and a more clear understanding of what Title I funds, what is that? We are also recruiting for focus groups. We hope to have a focus group convene for every single one of the subcommittees, and being mindful of community saturation levels. We will coordinate with administration accordingly so as not to overwhelm with a plethora of messages beyond this, beyond that. Maybe even we'll perhaps be able to combine, maybe there are some 2-for-1 opportunities, perhaps. The third item is the upcoming meeting in February, where we will solicit and engage all of our attendees in giving us feedback and that critical eye to inform further changes on the parent and family engagement policy. The subcommittee is meeting next. I didn't catch that date.
122.
On January 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And just moving right along, our last subcommittee is the LCAP subcommittee. Sarah Peterson, you are the chair. Can you share that?
Yes, we are a team that includes Veronica and Matt and Megan. And hopefully we'll be bringing on our new administrative designee at their earliest convenience and opportunity. We have shared some ideas. Again, this is all sort of in the brainstorming phase and putting everything out on the table, from looking at other neighboring districts, LCAPs, to see their outline goals, priorities, and action items, to looking at resources from the San Diego County Office of Education. They have a robust set of parent and family engagement seminars around LCAP input. And Matt Kill, for example, was able to attend one of those sessions. We have spent some time listening, I'll speak for myself, to Veronica and really learning from her deep expertise in liaising with our hardest to reach families and hearing the reality and the scope of what it takes to reach some of those families that and hearing about some of these emerging resources that previously I didn't know existed. And so it's been very humbling and grounding to hear the work that Veronica and those that work with her are spearheading. And again, we're just on we're in the ideation phase where we're getting everything out on the table, and we are eager to continue to lean into Veronica's expertise in seeing how our LCAP recommendations can use what we learn from our other subcommittees as demonstrated in the flow chart, using what we learn from our committees, our subgroups, our focus groups, our student voice members when they come on board to those focus groups, and how we can strategically align that feedback into what we have heard as being a need and continues to be proven to be effective in Veronica's work. So that's a general overview, and we are excited to meet again, which is TBD.
And I think I'll start with you, Grace. If any comments, questions? Okay. Sarah,
Nothing, thank you.
Matt,
I have no comments.
No comments.
No comments or questions.
No comments.
Nothing.
I'll pass.
and I think you recapped the work for that
Thank
one.
you.
So
I was wondering if I was going to have to do that again.
So just, one thing as a real source of pride is just trying to be mindful of our meeting time and really trying to keep it at an hour because we are all at the end of our day. We do have a few more items on our agenda, and one is a standing item that we have where it's an advisory committee report. DLAC, our District English Learner Advisory Committee. They always have an opportunity to speak at our SSC, and we are fortunate and very grateful to have Michelle Guarino here to kind of give us a little sneak peek to the work that they are doing. So thank you, Michelle, for joining
Okay, thank you. We really appreciate this opportunity. I'd rather stand over here anyways. I'm more comfortable. So just wanted to let you know, we had our first DLAC meeting in January, and the goal of that was really talking to our multilingual families about what it means to be a multilingual learner, talking about what it means to be a multilingual learner who's also an English learner, and also talking about all of the benefits of multilingualism. And then this coming up meeting, which is this Tuesday, January 23rd, we'll have a couple of different topics. We'll start out with Superintendent Dr. David Shreda. He'll be speaking to the families about Title III funding, what that is, and also how those funds are used this school year. And then the bulk of our meeting will really be about doing a needs assessment, which you've already alluded to earlier, that you already do a needs assessment with SSC. For the DLAC, the needs assessment is really looking at English learner data, analyzing that data, identifying with the families collaboratively, identifying areas of growth and also areas of strength. And then after we've identified those and prioritizing and really I think you had talked about deliverables earlier, Megan, really the deliverable for DLAC, because this is also mandated for a DLAC committee, is to share that information, that input with the SSC, with the leadership team at the school, and with the staff. So that's January 23rd, and we welcome any and all of you to come on Tuesday at the middle school. Any questions?
Thank you, Michelle. And we always have SSC members. We've signed up to attend that meeting just so that, and we, again, just can learn so much from DLAC, and it's such a great partnership. So thank you for being here today, Michelle. Next item on the agenda is the opportunity for public comment. This is the point of the agenda, which members of the public can speak to the SSC on non-agenda items. The SSC cannot act on any of the items on the agenda, but we are here and we welcome this opportunity to hear from our community. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to the SSC? And we're of course looking to Zoom as well. Okay. Our next meeting, we have concluded this meeting today. Our next meeting is Tuesday, February 6th, from 4:30 to 5 is a meet and mingle, and from 5 to 6 is our meeting. And it will be at the middle school, the NPR middle school. We like to alternate those sites because we are one LEA and our SSC speaks to one LEA here. Thank you for attending, and I adjourn this meeting at 6 o'clock.